You're watching Casually Baked, the podcast, home base for the Canna Curious. Thanks for tuning in.
It's high time. We had a high time together.
Settle in. It's time to get casually baked.
I'm in a yoga studio. It's as loud as I could be.
I know, be very quiet. Very
Yes.
quiet.
So, Steve,
Joanna.
I'm glad that we're getting back together for a post-yoga practice chat.
Me too.
Yeah, so you've got, while you were in there, some things were kind of tumbling around in your brain. And so what else do we need to talk about?
There's so much to talk about. Before we had this conversation, I was just thinking about this relationship between cannabis and yoga. And I went online, just what people do when they want to learn things. And I saw a lot of articles, and they had largely two different points of view. One is that marijuana has no place in yoga practice, which is very interesting because a lot of people who are very serious about their practice, they're so serious they're not having a lot of fun.
Yes. Yes. I see that.
And I understand where they're coming from, and it's yoga is a practice about bringing stillness to the mind. So you can't necessarily claim that cannabis is going to help you bring stillness to the mind, but that would be really pure yoga, where you are arranging your whole lifestyle in such a way that nothing disturbs your mind. And I don't think most people living in urban settings like this one are truly on a path to this enlightened state.
I was fixing to say that is like beyond enlightenment if you can pull that off in the Mission in San Francisco.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, if I felt that just letting go of cannabis in my life would lead me to enlightenment, I would give it up. I just don't think I'm that close, and it just isn't my goal at this point. Mm-hmm. And I think yoga offers so many benefits that come to you way before you get to a place in the practice where you have to really look at how is your cannabis use affecting your practice. After 11 years of practicing and using cannabis with my practice, I'm not at that place yet. And that's really the one side. It's getting in the way of you really achieving what yoga is designed to achieve, which is that pure, perfect state of mind. Then there are people who support it. And this largely seems to fall in the domain of people who are cultivating cannabis yoga branded businesses, retreats, all that thing. That's great. I think that's really interesting that it's getting branded right now because it's always been around.
Right.
It's always been on the DL.
Yeah. But experiential marketing is hot. Like people want to spend money on an experience over a product, and so people are cashing in on that right now.
I think it's great. I think, the yoga we do here at the studio is Ashtanga based, and it's pretty intense. So would I recommend that somebody come in here totally baked and try a class? Absolutely not. It's good to really get a sense of your body, where you are in space, left and right, forward and back, up and down, really simple things that become very complicated when, like a lot of people are, we're totally disconnected, mind and body. So adding cannabis to the mix isn't the best idea. But for people who really are just so in their heads, what they find often is that when they smoke a little weed before they practice or have an edible or however they want to take it, they come in and there's this ability to focus on the breath that's really unobstructed by the normal things that people think about. And I think the impairment of the short-term memory is the key.
Yeah.
I think if you can forget about your problems for a little bit, forget about this thing that you're anxious about for a little bit, and you go into the cannabis can take you there.
Yeah. That made me feel good, and I didn't even do it. That
Yeah.
was one thing while I was watching y'all practice and videoing it. That sound of 30 people doing that at one
Mhm.
time was really, really powerful.
Yeah.
I can see why Monica likes coming in and doing this group practice. What advice do you have for someone who is like me, who I work all the time and I know I need it and I can see that it is beneficial for me,
Hmm.
but I really don't have time to get out of the house and join a yoga family, so to
Hmm.
speak. Are there things that, like, for a newbie who wants to kind of experiment with yoga and cannabis at home at first before they come out? Because it's kind of intimidating to just come in.
I guess I hear this all the time, and I've heard this for 9 years now, that people think that this studio is really intimidating. What we're doing looks really intense. And they're right. What we are doing is intense, but if you start from the beginning and you work through it, you will become good at it. It's just a matter of practice. What can people do at home to develop some confidence with the practice before they come here?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like um, there's something really important about the community, about being around other people, about hearing other people in the room breathing. That's very inspiring. I think there's something really important about committing to a practice, even one you're uncomfortable with, just for some amount of time that makes sense for you, whether it's a week or a month, and to be in connection with a teacher or a few teachers who are really watching you and giving you feedback about your practice. I think a lot of people now practice using videos, online subscriptions to classes, and they're
That's
practicing
what
at
I
home.
do because it's just convenient.
And it's convenient. It's probably what most people truly have access to the most freely. I don't think a lot of people have the time, convenience, money, whatever, to go to a studio all the time. But when I experience this when I teach. I'm saying something. Everybody in the room thinks I'm talking to someone else. So it's like, well, actually, I'm saying this because I'm seeing this, and if I have to point you out specifically, I'll come tell you. But if you're practicing and you're watching a video, you're going to think you're doing everything right. So it's if
I don't.
there's an accountability that comes from going to a studio.
Right. No, I can
and-
pick that. I picked up on that for sure.
Yeah, and we started to see, like, okay, people really aren't getting this process. So our beginner classes have been broken down even more. And I think, the thing with cannabis and yoga, it can make you feel way more self-conscious than you would normally feel. So if you're new to yoga and it's already intimidating to you to come practice, maybe don't try cannabis and yoga yet.
Yeah, because for me, it's just completely the opposite. Like, for me to just come in completely sober, I would feel more self-conscious than
Uh-huh.
had I smoked. Because, it just kind of turns off that monkey brain.
Yeah. And that's awesome. It helps you in that way.
Yeah. I think, too, somebody mastering meditation and cannabis, like doing that first, because then they really do get synergistic with their breath in that space of being high, and then move into yoga, like a sun salutation when you're high, like, check your balance, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it really helps you to feel your body.
Yeah.
Most people are constantly drawn outward mentally. And you see people spending 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day on their phones and their computer at work. And so there's always this demand from outside to, have your attention sucked away. to other things. And here, the practice is all about taking that attention and turning it on yourself. And so if cannabis is a means by which we can feel our body with more sensitivity, we're naturally drawn inward. And if we start to feel things that we're not used to feeling, that can be uncomfortable. And so what we do is come in, do the practice. You're a little more sensitive under the influence of cannabis.
Yeah.
And then you have to breathe more intensely with more focus to really be in that sensation, especially when it's not comfortable. And so when you come in that room on Friday, you see that class, at least half of those people have used cannabis before the practice.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away from their focus at all. In fact, it probably enhances it, and it makes them a little more sensitive to how they feel so that they're moving organically as a unified body rather than just moving different parts of the body around and trying to figure the poses out.
Yeah.
It's really coming from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah, that level 2, 3 class was no joke.
That was a 3.
That was okay. It was
That
2, 3 was all 3. Okay.
That was the most difficult class we teach all week. So it's by no means.
And y'all were trying to get me to do it. Oh my gosh,
Well,
I would have been mortified.
Well, we just say, like, jump in.
Sure.
Any class, jump in. Just do
But
what
not
you
the
can do.
3. If you are a beginner, do not jump into a 3 class. That is a healthy tip from me.
Well, there are people who are very daring, and they just want it all.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah.
So.
Except you don't want to, crash in a handstand onto like a really good level 3 person. They'll be so pissed.
Well, we're very mindful of people, and before the class even starts, we make sure people get set up.
You'd have put me in the corner with a gate around me.
Yeah, exactly. The life preserver, the fire extinguisher,
and a little joint on the corner,
just in case.
Yes.
You probably didn't notice, but we have Larry's picture up in the back, and on top of his picture, we have a little pipe that just sits there.
Oh no, I did see the picture, and I think I got a little video of it, but I didn't notice the pipe above it.
Yeah,
Very clever. I'll have to see if I see it in the video.
We passed that around at his memorial back in 2011.
Great. That's so cool.
Well, he was just, Larry Schultz was, such an advocate for cannabis and yoga. The whole community of its yoga, at the end was all about his property up in Sonoma, which he called Nolly Land. And Nolly Land was where he was growing 100 plants, and he had his trainings, and he taught classes, and people lived there. And, he was demonstrating a lifestyle.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do for cannabis, where I'm like, this is what cannabis for wellness looks like. Cannabis is a part of my life. It is not my entire life.
Right.
I want to talk to you about other things besides pot. Everyone. I mean, and so it's nice to see, because you definitely can tell that. I mean, when Monica talks about him, her face lights up. Watching any of you talk about him, like, he truly changed so many lives. Do you have a favorite story about him?
I have many stories about him, but the story I tell often is just about going for a ride with him in his car, because a lot of people think you can tell the real yogi by their practice or what they don't do. Right? All the prohibitions they've put up, all the things they stay away from. And Larry really believed in enjoying life, and he lived his yoga. So you get in the car, and he had this ridiculous blue PT Cruiser convertible with the It's Yoga plates. And so he would drive around town, and he just was so patient, and he would stop when someone was approaching a crosswalk. He wasn't irritated that there were pedestrians. He let people pass. He was always just very friendly to everybody he came in contact with, especially on the road. And when he would go out for food, if he couldn't find a parking spot on the first time around, he'd go somewhere else. He left. He was just like, I want my plans to align with the universe's plans for me. So if there's no parking, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And he just had a very cool way about everything he was doing that was yoga. Like that was the yoga. So if you wanted to learn from Larry, you spent time with Larry. And if you wanted to spend time with Larry, you had to smoke weed.
Yeah.
You just had to. He didn't trust you if you didn't smoke weed, because it was like, well, what are you hiding?
Yeah.
Because it makes you vulnerable and it reveals a lot about you. So when you're sitting there with Larry and you're smoking weed, it's like the curtains are down.
Yeah.
And it's the real you. So like, who are you? And so he did not trust people who didn't smoke with him. And he said, don't trust the yoga teacher that doesn't smoke pot with you.
I think that's great advice. I'm sad I didn't know Larry.
Well, there's a great video. I think it's a Yoga Peeps interview with Larry that he did in Yerba Buena Park here. And he tells that story about you have to smoke pot with your yoga teacher. But he also talks about his time with the Grateful Dead. It's a great 10-minute interview where you can just listen to him in his own voice and you can tell he's completely baked.
Yeah.
And he's just sharing his love for this community he's created. And San Francisco was such an important part of, cannabis culture, yoga culture, and expanding that out into the larger world.
Yeah.
And I think, he was really at the forefront of just being really positive around things that made you a little less miserable to be around. That's what he always said. He said, do yoga. It'll make you a little less miserable to be around. And smoke weed. Smoke weed. If it makes you feel better, smoke it. If it doesn't make you feel good, let it go.
Yeah.
It's not about what other people say about it. And he always was so confused about this phenomenon where you can ask people, do you want to go get a drink? Like, yeah. Like, you want to smoke this joint? Oh, no, I don't smoke weed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like we have to have these conversations still, and it's opening up, but we have to have these conversations so people know. It's like, oh, people I respect, people I trust, they're okay with this. I can be okay with this.
And people that look amazing and who are athletic and fit and busy.
And sharp-minded.
Yeah.
And not lazy. You see the way people move in that room? That's not the stereotype of a stoner.
Yeah.
These are high-performance athletes in this room, right?
Yeah.
They know how to move. They know how to breathe. And they know how to focus. And so, the benefits of yoga are raining down upon these people.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful people walking in and out of there. I mean, just from the short amount of time that I've been practicing, can totally tell a difference in my body and just my lower back, and learn, noticing when I'm not sitting up straight, and like, head over heart over pelvis. Like, these are things that I didn't think about 6 months ago when I'm like, working over my computer like this. But now I'll catch myself and I'm like, oh, I need to sit up. Like, I need to like pull my shoulders back, pull them down. Like, and so it helps in so many crazy aspects of my every single day. And I only practice it for like 20 minutes, 5 days a week.
That's a lot.
It is?
That's a lot. It is a lot. Yeah, like if you're practicing 5 days a week for 20 minutes, that's a lot. And what Larry called that was the MDR, the minimum daily requirement.
That's what I want.
Just do a little bit. It's better than doing nothing. You got to move and breathe. And what he always said was yoga was for the health of your nervous system.
Yes.
So it's not about your body. It's about your nervous system, because you live at the mercy of your nervous system. And so, there's this relationship between cannabis and yoga there too, because we know a few things about the therapeutic benefits of cannabis, and we know it's a neuroprotective substance agent. So these two go together. And if you look at some old stoner yogis, you're going to find some of the most peaceful people you know.
Yeah, it's true. I lived in Mill Valley for a while. There's a lot of them there.
They run the place.
Yeah, they do. They totally do. Oh my gosh. Well, this is good. I'm glad that we got back together.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, so now tell me one more time. You own the studio with Renee. Oh, I never caught Renee's last name, I don't think. And I want to make
Renee Henley.
Renee Henley. He was an excellent instructor.
He's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best. And he, he was the main teacher when we opened. I wasn't teaching when we opened. We met in 2008. We started practicing right away. Well, I had to start practicing right away because he was teaching at It's Yoga. And that was kind of one of the terms of our relationship.
Yeah.
So I had to do yoga.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be with somebody who doesn't do yoga. Because that person is either crazy or they're going to be.
Yeah.
So I started practicing. We opened the studio. And he was teaching all the classes for a long time. And then when I started teaching, I started to get better at teaching. A few years ago, he started to take fashion design programs, and he's moving in that direction. But this practice is still a big part of his life and always will be. And he's got a gift for sharing it.
Yeah.
And helping people see that, yeah, you can do it. It's possible, and it's going to change your life.
Yeah, he has quite a presence. So I was glad to get to see him in action. So,
yeah, he's the real deal.
Yes, he is. Well, I hope that you're all inspired to try a little cannabis-infused yoga or just yoga by itself in general. But Asta Yoga is in the Mission in San Francisco. And, I plugged it in the other thing. We don't have to repeat that. I'll use the special, but I'll include that video and more info about Asta Yoga in the show notes at casuallybaked.com. So be sure and check it out there.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joanna.
Yes. Thank you, Steve. You're amazing. And this is the quietest I think I've ever spoken in my life. I know. I think my family wishes I would have taken up yoga a long time ago.
I know. Nobody can hear me anymore.
My whole life, Joanna, use your inside voice. Like, I don't have one. I just learned I have a new inside voice. So thanks for helping me find my inside voice, Steve.
Of course.
Well, what do you think? Are you ready to stretch yourself in 2019? Explore the POTCAST 68 show notes at casuallybaked.com for both at-home yoga and meditation recommendations, as well as special offers from Asta Yoga for you San Francisco locals. If you appreciated today's podcast, I hope you'll share this episode with a friend or family member.